Hi, I'm Hunter, and I'm the host of the Cabin Addiction Recovery podcast, and I'm here with Gemma Barnes.
Hi, Hannah. You okay?
Yeah. How you doing?
Really good. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah. No doubt. So yeah, I know you from TV and from the news and stuff, but tell me about you. Where are you from?
So I'm from Devon, right at the bottom of the UK. Lots of beaches, very rural, not very much going on, not too much fun to be had around there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place though, isn't it?
Beautiful, yeah. I think it's more of like suitable for a bit of retirement perhaps than it is for growing up in your teens and your 20s.
Yeah. No, I actually know people that have came from America to like literally live, like retire there, you know?
Yeah.
No doubt. So what's it like growing up there aside from it being a bit boring?
I had a difficult upbringing in the sense of like family, but it was a beautiful place to grow up.
Yeah.
I feel very privileged to live in such a nice part of the world, and and our version of poverty in a place like Devon is nothing like the poverty across the world. So aren't we lucky?
Yeah.
But,
how many people grew up in the like town that you grew up in?
You know, I don't know what the population is, but it was small because it was like a cul-de-sac that you had to drive out of it.
Yeah.
To get to anywhere else.
Yeah.
So when places say that they're like, everyone's like, it's cliquey, you can't comprehend what cliquey is unless you've grown up
in a place
like I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up in a really small town called Exmouth, which is like, it's got nothing around it. You'd have to like drive back the other way.
Yeah, I grew up in I grew up in a town in Ohio, which is like right on the border of West Virginia, and there was like 1,300 people in my whole like hometown. Like literally, there's the highway, and there's 2 gas stations, and like a pizza place and a bank, and then there's nothing.
Yeah,
and it's like farms and stuff. So no, I totally get it. Like, definitely grew up in a place where it was definitely cliquey, you know, to say the least. I wasn't a popular kid growing up.
Yeah.
So yeah. So,
I was as well. I was the spotty ugly kid, really bullied in school, and I just never imagined I'd end up being an adult like I am now. But there's not much space for growth in a place like that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I literally had like this like weird haircut whenever I was younger, and I was like overweight, and I was like a real angry young man, and was put on like ADHD medication from a young age. Got in trouble at 12 years old with the police. Started smoking and drinking at 12 years old. So I get it. I was definitely like an outcast, to say the least. So,
and I think like the only place that you sometimes fit in at that age is getting up to no good. Like you fit in the groups of people.
Yep.
You're suddenly like accepted into some sort of clique. So it's easy to
because they're different as well, you know?
Yeah.
That's how they ended up there too. Yeah.
And people that tend to have no other friends all grouped together and normally around alcohol and drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did that start for you?
So I would say alcohol was always very curious from a super young age. Like now I think back to being like 5 or 6 years old and like my parents leaving the room and having like a sip of the alcoholic drink that they had, because I knew I wasn't allowed it.
Yeah.
I was quite aware that it was alcohol, but I was always really super curious at like what it tasted like and why they drank it. But I suppose stealing like your parents' alcohol, them going to make like a gin and lemonade and being like, this lemonade's really flat. And I'm thinking, it's because your gin's water.
Yeah.
Like stealing bottles of wine, drinking Malbec down the beach at like 12 years old. I suppose it was always what I would say is a normal curiosity and a normal mess to get into. But as I know now, I can't handle alcohol. It doesn't agree with me. I'm allergic to that lifestyle. So I was setting myself up for a fall going into my late teens. I lost a partner when I was quite young. He had a motorbike accident.
Yeah.
That was my childhood sweetheart. And after that, drugs just seemed to sort of be everywhere with alcohol. So I suppose about 18 or 19.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I can really relate to that. Not the same situation. Like I didn't lose a partner, but I lost my childhood best friend when I was 14 years old from a drunk driving accident. And I mean, it really... to like experience and like saw him in the hospital dying essentially, and you know, to like experience trauma like that at a young age, even if you're 18 or whatever, I mean it can really set you on a path for self-destruction. Yeah.
Also, you just know, I didn't have anyone around to like dissect those feelings or you know, I've got a biological mother, but I don't see. And the one conversation I did have with her in that time, she said not to act like a victim in that situation. So you don't know who else to talk to about it. You don't know where else to turn. So it became one of the puzzle pieces that led to my addiction.
Yeah. Well, and with mental health stuff here, I mean, I don't know. For adults, it's hard to access stuff. So as a juvenile, is it the same? I mean, is it like...
there was never... Like the mental health talk and mental health support now is so widely talked about, and so it should be. But back then, it just wasn't. I don't know anyone that was talking about suffering from mental health when I was going through stuff like that. And if people were, and they were talking about addiction and mental health, you just be like, oh, they've lost their mind.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't ever think that someone was mentally poorly. So no, there weren't really resources.
What even like therapists and stuff like that? I mean, I'm assuming like even in Devon, it might even be more.
Yeah, I think the waiting lists even then were perhaps so unachievable and so long that you might have just buried your situation, which, as we know, leads to a bigger situation or event later on. But I don't think resources have ever really been that readily available in Devon, especially where I live.
Yeah. So what about your parents? I know you said that your mom...
Yeah, I grew up with my mum and my dad were childhood sweethearts. My dad was a Royal Marine.
Yeah.
He was a little shit. He was just off shagging everyone in America. But it turned very quickly physical. He's financially controlling. And the domestic violence was a whole nother level. The things that she suffered led to her not being able to bond with her children. She couldn't display emotion. She doesn't love. She's been very open about that. And I respect that now I'm older. I let her go with love. But growing up with someone that was so quick to anger themselves because of their hurt was really difficult. My dad disappeared about the age of 5. He's now on to wife number 5. He has 7 children, so it was difficult. It was difficult to not have one parent around and have nothing but good memories, because I'd been shielded from what abuse was going on behind closed doors. You know, he left a mess, and I put him on a pedestal growing up. Thought he was going to come and save me.
Yeah.
But my real mum, I haven't had really much contact with her since I was 16. I actually went to go and live in a homeless hostel when my boyfriend passed away.
Yeah. And how old were you then?
I think I was about 17.
Yeah.
17, just coming up to 18. And that was the first time I'd seen drugs and like jaundice in people that had alcohol problems and stuff like that. But I wanted to go. I wanted my mum, but she just didn't have that ability.
Yeah. So did you make it all the way through school and stuff?
Yeah, so I didn't go in for the last year. You could kind of say then you're on revision leave and just say that you were studying at home.
Yeah.
And I just went in for my exams, and that was it, because girls just weren't very nice. I went to actually the biggest secondary school in Europe.
Wow.
It was huge. There were 500 children in each year group. Oh. Which is mental, because it was like a cul-de-sac town. Maybe the population was bigger than I remember, but it was just you just got swallowed alive if you weren't popular, and I was not popular.
Yeah.
But yeah, school just wasn't an easy time at all.
Yeah. So what happened as a young adult for you? Where did life go for you?
I met my eldest son. I met his father on the drug scene. I was just partying hard. I was hairdressing, because I'm a hairdresser.
Yeah.
I was hairdressing and out drinking every night of the week.
Yeah.
And drugs were just starting to be introduced in a way that was more of a regular thing. And I suppose that was my life, work and drinking.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything else to do. There wasn't really and I was curious about boys, I suppose, again. I was always looking for a bit of my partner that died. I was always looking for a bit of him in other people.
Right.
So having a lot of flings, I was just desperate to see a bit of him, which just now I say it that, I feel really sorry for my younger self that I thought that could be a coping mechanism in my grief. But yeah, there was just nothing else to do. And I fell pregnant at 19 with my eldest son. But his dad was into drugs in a bigger way than I really comprehended, and he made the decision not to be involved, and I was on my own with a baby.
Yeah, it's crazy, like a lot of the similarities. My daughter was born when I was 19, but I was like, given her mom and I met through drugs and all of that, and she ended up living with my family, and my daughter lived with my family, and my parents had my daughter like through my whole addiction. And so I don't want to say I was the dad that like disappeared, but I was like actually around but still using drugs. But I mean, it had me in such a grip whenever, like literally as she was born, she had like the biggest smile on her face. Like literally the moment she was born, I started talking and she smiled at me. And then like I was in such, the addiction had such a hold on me that I was like getting high in the parking lot before we left the hospital, and it's just, crazy similarities there. So did you continue to like party and stuff? Like,
so no, it kind of just slipped out of my life. I'd always wanted to be a mum. Like I was desperate to be a mum.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have really much family. Like I just knew my family was always going to start with me, and I wanted to start that as quickly as possible. I just didn't imagine it would be under those circumstances. So no, I committed myself to my son, and I would just say I'd have those few moments where people would discuss drugs, and drink wasn't really a big thing for me, but it didn't really ever bother me. There was like a few sporadic times where there were legal highs were a huge thing back then.
Yeah.
And they would be at festivals because they were legal.
Yeah, what was it?
So they were like chemicals made in labs. Yeah. And what they would do when they made the chemical illegal, they would change one chemical compound and bring the drug back out. But
we did the same. We had the same, but it was like, we called it K2 or spice. It was like spice.
There were loads of different
bath salts and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
But there were just loads of different ones. Like you could get like cocaine and like pills and stuff like that, but it was all this version of, and they were around a few times at parties, but because they were so horrific, it's not like you wanted to do it again the next weekend. So it was okay.
I got addicted to that stuff actually.
Shit.
Yeah, I got physically dependent on like this. It was big here too, but spice.
Yeah.
And that's all it was.
I hear a lot of stuff about spice now.
Yeah. So yeah, bad stuff.
But yeah, it wasn't really on my. It didn't really come back. Addiction didn't really come back around for me. Like I suppose it manifests itself in other ways, and we know that through like working programs. Like you start to understand that you work steps because your addiction will manifest in some other way. And I suppose my addiction manifested into like shopping or like money burning a hole in my pocket became my new addiction. I had to spend every pound in my bank.
Yeah.
And I suppose it was just always underlining in different ways. And like being in the rooms where I go to my meetings and stuff, like I hear people talk about shoplifting, like when they were younger, and I'm like, fuck, I used to do that. And all these things and what your first drug was. And it's really surprising that it doesn't have to be a substance. No,
like literally in the last episode, I was talking about how food was an issue for me, like, before drugs ever were. I obsessed with sugar and food and all of that. And it's funny, I have people from all over the world that like reach out to me looking for help for, mental health issues and substance abuse and all of that. And like people actually message me about like kleptomania and stuff. They're like, literally they can't stop stealing stuff and they don't know why they do it, and it's an impulse. So yeah.
It's the way that the brain reacts to the reward, and
it's the excitement.
I suppose within my recovery, like I'm a very science-based woman. Like I work with my job, I work with science and every day, and to understand the brain's processes with addiction is really helpful for me. So a lot of people are surprised to understand that they can't help it. Like you're not responsible for your addiction, but you're responsible for your recovery.
Yeah, no doubt. So when did things like, because you said you stopped for a while, so how did it happen for you to fall back into it?
I suppose on and off for a 10-year period, but it was in a relationship. We were using a lot of like MDMA, but it just because it was a weekend thing doesn't, like, we justify it to ourselves. We think it's a social habit and not necessarily an addiction, because there's a time lapse between each use. You think, I'm not an addict, but I certainly was addicted to my time with him and that closeness of that boyfriend. never really comprehending that the only time we were emotionally open and available to each other was when there were drugs involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose sporadically for 10 years, every relationship I had, there was always drugs around and alcohol. But the way that I got, it was lockdown.
Yeah.
It came for me big, and I had a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's when it went downhill.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was a massive, issue for a lot of people. It's definitely a dark time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I suppose a lot of people probably started addiction then. It got worse for me then. I wouldn't say it started then, but that was when it hit a head where I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And, being at a stage of addiction where your body aches and you feel sick at the thought of doing it, and you don't want to do it, and you desperately want to wash those drugs away, but you can't because it's got you.
Yeah, it's got you for sure. I lived in I was like sober for, I'm pretty sure 2 years or so whenever like lockdown started. And I was in Arizona and like everything was shut. Like you couldn't have anything indoors at all. And I kind of used that as like a justification to not go to meetings. Like there were tons of Zoom meetings. I just couldn't, I couldn't stand them is what I told myself. But I actually drifted away from the program that I'm in and, became very isolated. I didn't know anyone in Arizona really. I'd been living there for a short period of time and I got really, restless, irritable and discontent, and it really affected my life. And to be honest, I'm surprised I didn't relapse. And it was actually really hard to get back into like working a program. So, grateful that I'm alive, but no, it was a hard time for sure.
Amazing that, testament to the program as well, that you managed to pick that back up, and testament to your commitment to sobriety, because we know like the voice inside your head is your voice that's telling you this is a good idea. Bad habits start sneaking back in. So you did really well.
Yeah. Well, I got really overweight. I was looking at pictures of myself and I was like really overweight. And that's when my wife and I met. And she actually I had to go through the process of getting a passport and all of that and coming over here, and things were locked down here too. And just a crazy time. Yeah. So, how did you get into the TV stuff? How did that start?
So, I split up with my boy's dad. I split because I have 2 children. I split up with him about a week before lockdown. It had been going downhill since it started. We should never have really been in that relationship.
Yeah.
And I'd never really had a great love since I was a teenager, and I still will never know now whether that would have continued to be successful. So I felt like I was 30, and I thought, I'm 30 years old and I still haven't had a nice boyfriend. So I knew that I would be TV gold because I'm quite eccentric and a filthy sense of humour.
Yeah.
Quite a probably naturally Marmite controversial person, and I'm okay with that. Generally wherever I am, I get along with people, so I knew if I applied for it I had a really good chance of getting on. And being a little bit of a fangirl of the whole documentary side of it and the actual experiment. So we're matched on science, so they said. We're matched on these intricate surveys, counselling sessions, and all of this work seemingly had been put into this process.
Yeah.
My children had been a bit upset. I dated 2 people in a couple of years. And they were a bit devastated when I split up with the second guy because he had children. So I didn't want to put them through that again, but selfishly I wanted someone for myself.
Of course.
So I trusted these experts, and I thought that they were going to match me, or him, as intricately as they had put effort into finding out who I was and what I was about. So I just thought, I'm going to go away for 10 weeks with this amazing man that's been matched to me, and my children won't get hurt, and I can bring this man home and say with all knowledge, this guy is perfect for me and he's not going to run away or hurt you or hurt me and I get to commit time, which I don't because I own a business. I'm on my own with 2 children. I thought I'm going to have all of this time with him. So I applied. my family, my friends and their families were very upset because they knew I would get on the show. But it's not legally binding, so I didn't see the risk. Not one part of me thought, I believed the characters on the show before. I believed that people hadn't tried hard enough, perhaps, to see why they'd been matched. And it used to infuriate me watching it, like, why aren't they trying harder? And then I did it. And I got set up with an actually quite scary man. It was a very scary time. I told them that I was scared for my safety a couple of times.
Did you live with him?
So we were supposed to, but he was nowhere to be seen. He cried mental health at every opportunity to be separated from the process.
Yeah.
He was only sort of interested in filming.
Yeah.
And also looking like the victim in the process, which didn't play out well for him because people aren't stupid. And my fears were right because he went on to attack a couple of people on the show.
Wow.
So
was this before or after lockdown? I don't.
This is after.
It was after. Yeah.
Yeah. So this happened last May.
Yeah.
And it aired in September.
So were you struggling with addiction at that? Yeah. In that moment. Yeah.
And every day I was like, this is the last day. This is the last day. This is the last day. And I thought I need to just stop, like, at least before I go, because it's not going to be accessible. And then you get there and as we know with addiction, you just swap from one for the other. So although there wasn't like cocaine around, there was certainly a lot of alcohol. Yeah. And in these big glass decanters, and everyone's like hyenas. They're like jumping on it and they're like pouring themselves multiple glasses of wine. So every time you're filming, there would be alcohol. Yeah. And a lot of it.
And where was it filmed at?
In London. We're filming in. I can't even I've blocked it out. PTSD. Yeah, we were filming all over. Yeah. But abroad and here, and I was just a mess. I was a complete mess. Yeah. And as I know now, working the 12-step program, that probably the first stages where I was falling apart were probably like my come down of my addiction. Yeah. And I should never have been on that show. I should never have been cast by them, certainly not. Psychiatrists could obviously tell that I was a bit of a mess. No. But I in my head, I thought it could use it as a bit of a rehab, perhaps. Like I was going to be away from, and as we know, geography doesn't change addiction. Yeah. And I came home and I went straight back to my old ways, if not worse.
So how has it been for you? Because you didn't have a following before that.
I had 1,000 followers.
Yeah. So you blew up quickly.
Yeah. Everyone did from the series.
Yeah, that's how it is. My wife. I mean, my wife is from, everybody, like, they always end up on Love Island or whatever. Yeah. Like, she went to school with people that have been on there that are, like,
so have I. Like, famous. I know people, I spoke to people from Love Island before I went on, and I was like, right, reality TV, am I making a mistake here? And they were like, there's pluses and minuses. Yeah. But I wish... And people probably did say it to me. They probably said, remember, it's TV. And I was just like, fuck off. They're matching me to the love of my life. Yeah. It's funny how desperate we'll behave when we really want something and we think that that's the best way to get it. Yeah. Yeah. I just thought shortcut. And we love a shortcut.
Well, how has it been? Because I know, like, having, like, attention and a following can be hard for some people in recovery,
I've only just got better. I would say the last probably 4 or 5 months I've just got better. Yeah. I was very unwell. I had psychosis.
What substance was that from?
That's from cocaine. But it was also mixed with the being in the papers every day. Yeah. I couldn't take the slightest bit of criticism. Somebody said something about me in OK Magazine and I had a full breakdown. And it just wasn't the right way to deal with it. Like, it must have been really painful for people to watch, especially people that knew I was an addict. Yeah. To watch me having this mental breakdown and an emotional breakdown. I lost my home in the middle of all of that, and I became homeless through my addiction. It was hard.
And your kids were with you?
Yeah. 12 years we were in that house.
Wow. But while you were homeless, they were with you as well?
Yeah. We went to a homeless place. Luckily, I got back on my feet financially, and I'm able to afford a beautiful home for us again.
Amazing. No,
absolutely
good on you.
Amazing.
Yeah. But the promises.
Yeah, it's just I can't believe that I put them through that. But I'll never make that mistake. And if I spend my whole life making it up to them, then I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah. No. That's amazing. Congrats on getting back to it. Because
thank you.
A lot of people would have just like used that as an excuse to go even further in, you know?
Yeah. And that definitely was probably the turning point for me. I'd always wanted to take those steps and get into a program, but the NHS is oversaturated. That there's just not enough funding for addiction. There is a massive taboo in this country.
Yeah.
We're really ready to criticize addiction. We're not ready to support. And in those rooms is the only place that you'll find it from other addicts.
So it would be good to say that you wish you had treatment, though, or you had access to that.
It should have been an offer. It should have been available. There were certainly times where I needed to go into a rehab, and that wasn't available.
Do you still feel, though, like, because like recovery can be one thing, right? But do you feel that you still suffer from like other stuff that's like untreated?
I feel like working that 12-step program and living a spiritual life is getting me better.
Yeah.
I'm very serious about working those steps, and I'm very serious about getting better. I'm by no means better. Like, I'm 94 days clean, and I would be 3 more days clean if I hadn't have just listened to what I want to listen to, which was. So in the program that I work, alcohol and drugs are treated the same. Alcohol is the biggest drug, and it is.
Yeah.
But I just heard, la, 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 stop the drug of your choice. So I was like, no more cocaine, I'll have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
So, you go back and you're like, oh my God, I was really triggered the other night. I had a glass of wine. I don't know. I had to ring people from the group, and they're like, you're not clean. You've had a glass of wine. Like, that it's a drug. Like, you have to start again. I was fuming. I was like, no, what do you mean? 1 glass of wine breaks my 2-day sobriety? But as soon as I got my head around that, like, it does make it a hell of a lot easier.
Well, at least you figured it out quick, you know?
I know.
Yeah.
But I have to work those steps to get better. So now I live a very healthy lifestyle now. I meditate, I go to the gym. I'm very big on yoga and stuff like that. Never thought I'd say that. Yeah. Never.
Yeah, I was in Costa Rica like 3 or 4 weeks ago and did like the yoga there and like meditated and did all like a sound bath thing where they use all these sound bowls. It was incredible. Yeah, no, I think all of that stuff is like super important because like you can get sober and life gets a lot better, but like to do that extra thing, it just adds like a layer of.
But it will manifest itself. Your addiction, if you spirit. I really do think a lot of people that have struggled with addiction are trying to find the spiritualness in them in the wrong places.
Yeah.
And being spiritual is the only thing that I'm massive on manifestation and the law of attraction.
Yeah.
I always have been, but I think I used that to my benefit and to my discredit whenever I wished before. And now I just know that you have to be positive and you have to put those actions into place as well.
Yeah. So what's it like being, I say sober, but you say clean. How is it being clean in the same place that you were using it?
Just like, it's just a whole nother world. It's almost like someone's lifted the fog. At first I panicked about like wanting to use. I didn't want to, but I was like, what if? And I was always living in a what if for certainly the first like 30, maybe 60 days. And then all of a sudden it's just like, this has become really normal. Like using never pops into my mind anymore. Yeah, and I never thought I'd say that either. Yeah. Like using is just not even a thought process anymore. And people will hear like 95 days and that might not sound impressive, but when someone can't go one day, like that, like I've changed my life.
Yeah, I couldn't even go a few hours. No, that's massive. I mean, I think aside from being sober now, and I'm coming up on 6 years, and I'll be Amazing. 6 years in this coming February. And before this, the longest period of sobriety I had since I was 12 was 5 months. And before that, I would get sober for like 30 days and relapse. And just, I was in this cycle of like rehab, I wouldn't say recovery, sobriety, relapse, rehab, and I just kept doing that over and over again. So to get 90 some days is amazing,
Yeah, I feel really, really lucky. But yeah, I can definitely relate to what you're saying because I tried sobriety before and I knew alcohol was the trigger and I knew I needed to cut out the alcohol. So I did. And then you do if I could put it down for 30 days, I reckon I could have a drink now and be normal. And like, I really always wished I had a really good relationship with alcohol and that I could pick it up and put it down, but I can't. And I tried. And I'm glad that I did those 30 days and that I relapsed because now I know that is what happens. I know that's not an option.
Yeah.
And actually, like alcohol, there's so many alternatives. And I don't mind other people drinking. I just like, that's if you're healthy and you have a healthy relationship, but I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that party and use all different kinds of things and like can live a completely normal life and like work like an office job and go in a few days later. But with me, it's like as soon as I ingest any kind of substance, it's over with until literally something ends it, until I hit that rock bottom or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, no.
Like I don't care about like when I'm using like financial ruin. I'm like woo. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like I would supply it like that when I had to like go through my bank statements when like facing the truth. Like this is now like in recovery. There were days where like I was sending like a dealer like £1,000 a day, and it was for other people and for me, not just I was doing £1,000 a day. But like you just. It's not over until like I say it's over because I'm paying for it. So like I wanted to carry on so other people did.
So with on the TV show, did they like ask you whether you suffered from addiction or like anything like that?
Nothing like that. They said I was suffering from trauma. No, and actually I think like a couple of times like I was on a come down when I'd had like conversations with them and like FaceTimes. You're like, I don't know if I can do this, but you snap back into it for that time period. But God, these are like the UK's leading psychiatrists and counsellors. You're telling me they didn't have some sort of inkling that I'm an addict?
Yeah.
But I don't know if I hid it that well. I didn't because everyone in my area knew.
Yeah.
I mean, we're good liars, but like I was like rock bottom then. I can't really imagine that I was hiding it that well, especially from people that are psychiatrists. But yeah, like what a crazy time.
And just out of curiosity, do they like question like your financial history or anything like that?
No,
Nothing.
No,
really?
Because it's not a legally binding marriage. There's no need to sort of get into the legalities of what you do and don't have. But yeah, it still blows my mind that they can know that someone's suffering from trauma and still think, but you'll be great for a TV show.
Yeah.
We've told you the words trauma, but we think you'll be fine. And I said to them, I said to this lady, do you think I'm suitable for this show if I'm suffering from trauma? And she was like, you'll be fine.
So would you go back on TV?
I've really made peace with it, and that's part of working those steps. And I can't sit here and go nothing good came out of it because some good did come out of it. I have a big following. I work with I work on OnlyFans now, and like that's changed my life. And so much positive really has, and I have to take the positives now. And that was just a time in my life where I suffered, and it doesn't have to be that way forever. So yeah, I suppose if it was the right sort of thing for me, then yeah, to raise my platform, especially to talk about sobriety, there's nothing I wouldn't do.
Yeah. What about your friends though? What do you think they would be worried for you?
No, I just think everyone knows that you can't tell me what to do, and I'll just do anything I want anyway.
Yeah.
No, I think my friends, I'm super lucky. I've had the same 3 best friends for 10 years, and they're just like, we'll be there when you need us.
Yeah.
If you need us, call us. But I'm the wild one. No one else drinks, or like, especially not drugs. Like, if you said to my 3 best friends drugs, they'd be horrified. So sitting them 3 down to tell them that how bad my addiction was, I did hide it from them.
So was there any kind of like intervention or anything, or you just kind of came to terms with it yourself?
I'm adopted, and I did sit my adopted mum down, and I did tell her that that was one of my rock bottoms. I was really emotional. I said that I'm an addict, and stuff like that, but she used. So she would suggest using together, like after that. And I don't really think she ever really comprehended that I meant it, and that she thought it was like a come down or like I was feeling rough or something. But yeah, there was never really any support. There wasn't any support.
Yeah.
And my friends don't really understand addiction because they've never partaken in taking drugs.
So how'd you get into 12 Steps though? You knew it was there.
So I knew that there were programs out there because I knew there was like AAs all over the TV. So I just thought there must be other programs, and I found something similar that suited my needs. And I couldn't find the building for my first meeting, and I was like outside crying. So I was like, I'm finally here. Like I've Googled it. Like I've got all the details up of like all the places where they have these meetings. And I walked in like 45 minutes late, and it's exactly like what they see on the TV. Like it's like dark room, everyone's sat in a circle. My name's Gemma, and I'm this, and like. Yeah, it was like it was almost like here's my white flag of relief, like I'm here, like relief.
Yeah.
And having that support, it doesn't necessarily suit me now. I've settled into like sobriety, going to those meetings because a lot of those people are very poorly.
Yeah.
It doesn't suit me going there like as much as I was. So now I'm doing like a mixture of online and in person. But yeah, like I try and give to the fellowship as much as I can. I try and like support with the use of like my business. I give like raffle prizes for like unity days and family days, and just try and be a good part of the fellowship and supportive for other people.
No, love that. So you're at a point where you could say that you want to stay clean forever then?
There's no other option.
Yeah.
If I used again, it would jails, institutions, and death. Like I'd be dead. I'd 100% be dead.
Yeah.
There's like, I would not survive a relapse because of my mentality and the fact that I don't have a cut-off point.
Yeah.
It's just not an option.
So this is your first time like thoroughly doing anything, and wow. Mm-hmm. No, I hope you stick with it. Unfortunately, that's not my story.
Yeah. And now you've been clean for six years, sober.
Close.
Yeah. Close. And how have you found this 6 years?
Amazing. Well, it's been up and down because there's been times, like I said earlier, where I drifted from like the program and all of that. And honestly, for the first 2 years, I was like not completely well mental health wise. So like I still suffered, and I was very silent about it because I actually like had a social media following fairly early on, right? So it was in silence. You know, I didn't share about, suffering from depression and anxiety and being isolated and all of that. And so those times, there's been hard times, and I've lost people. I lost one of my childhood best friends to an intentional overdose. Mm-hmm. And but I mean, at that time, that was a good reminder of why I don't want to use. But aside from that, like I haven't thought about using, and it's been good. And here I am. I never thought I'd be anywhere else. Well, thank you. I never thought I'd be anywhere else in the world. I mean, I'm from a place in West Virginia where people never leave. They literally never leave. Why would you ever have a passport? They don't go on vacation. They don't, it's, it's crazy.
As you know, like I've followed you on Instagram for a little while now, and I've seen your videos that you do, and I've seen your progress through those pictures that you've shared. I think you've done amazing.
Well, thank you.
I think, you've changed your life.
Yeah, those videos and pictures of me are like the best tool that I've ever had for social media.
You've helped other people with that.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, those videos and pictures have been seen millions and millions of times, and I've been able to help people all around the world, and show them that, if you look like that and you can relate to that, and you're at that point, like there's hope,
Yeah, there is hope.
Yeah. So no, it's been amazing. Things over the last few years have gotten really good. Yeah, it's been amazing.
It's like you've lived two lives, isn't it? Because it really is. Like you're just not the same person, but you have to like nurture that side of yourself and look after that person that's poorly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And remember that
because it comes back.
Yeah, and they're still there. Like, and I'll always be an addict. I'm grateful to be an addict. I'm grateful to be in recovery.
Yeah. And the thing is, like you said, it really does start to it can manifest in other ways, and obsessions can happen even in recovery, and you got to be aware of that and do work toward that. Do you have any topics that you want to touch on specifically?
I think it's just more chemically, people should understand that alcohol and cocaine mixed together is actually a chemical name called coefalin.
Huh.
So, similar to when people smoke a cigarette and they drink, if you have a drink, and you're like, I need a cigarette. Obviously we don't drink, but other people do. You'd be like, I need a cigarette. And that is exactly what the brain's doing. You're triggered by cocaine. It's called coefalin. You can't have one without the other. And I'd like to think if people understood that it's out of your control, but you can change. I've changed.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize that. So it's like a chemical reaction.
It's a new chemical reaction. Yeah.
Wow.
They've now given it a chemical name, but yeah, coefalin is where your brain will react, and you're on a rampage. Your brain has to have cocaine.
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
I've mixed so many drugs together. I've created a bunch of different chemical reactions.
I don't know how we're both alive. I don't know. Honestly, it's funny to laugh about it now, but yeah. And I've the drug scene where I live, even now, is in lockdown. I could get a gram of coke easy, and then I could get a pint of milk.
Wow.
And that is the truth.
Delivered as well.
But yeah, it's not, I just want people to know, if you're suffering and it's not your fault, it's not your fault.
Yeah. No, it's an illness.
You can get better. You're poorly, but you can get better. And I owe everything that I have to work in a 12-step program, but there's just so many resources out there. You don't have to rely on the National Health Service necessarily, and if you need a rehabilitation centre, reach out and tell people and be honest with people that love you, because they want to help you.
Yeah, and the most amazing thing about 12-step programs, right? I, in the last 6 months, have been to Switzerland, Thailand, South Africa, Costa Rica, America, the UK, right? And every single one of those places, I went to meetings. And if it's an English-speaking meeting, then we're speaking the same language, especially when it comes to addiction and recovery. No matter where I go, these people understand me.
Yeah, they do.
And they know what I'm suffering from or what I have suffered from. And they get it. So if you're in a different country or if you're in your home country, there's people there that get you, and all you have to do is walk into a meeting. And it's free
literally
as well. I mean, the
most important person in the room as well is the person that's newest into recovery or in a relapse. And there's no shame in relapse either.
Yeah.
I had a real stigma attached to me when I was first in those rooms about people coming back after a relapse. I saw it as failure. It's not. You keep coming back. That's not failure. Just keep going back, and it's about the desire to want to be clean, to go into those rooms. It's not about being clean.
Yeah. Well, and it's not a failure, but it is dangerous. So
it's so dangerous because as well, once your body's gone without it and then you have it, the risk of death is so much higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
The risk of serious health problems once you've stopped and you start it's scary.
Well, especially where I'm from. I mean, I'm from the highest overdose place in the United States, and you might think you're getting heroin, but it all has fentanyl and carfentanil, which is elephant tranquilizer that they put in drugs and sell to people. And literally you could do a very small amount and die. So if you're in a place like that and you relapse, it really is dangerous. So
and similar with cocaine where I live now, when I was starting to think about getting clean, there's no cocaine in that. There's no cocaine in the cocaine.
Yeah.
It's amphetamines and just dirty things. And you're so desperate to be high and to forget everything that you'll just keep spending money on that disgusting, dirty drug anyway. But
well, that makes it worse. That makes you want it more.
Yeah, it does make you want it more.
Yeah,
the amount of times I bought it, did it, it didn't do anything, I'd be like, I'll try again.
Yeah.
I'll buy the same thing and hope for different results.
Yeah. The madness of
yeah, the madness of addiction. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I feel so grateful that I'm clean and sober, and but also there are people out there that are suffering, and I just want to help those people and let them know that they're normal.
Yeah.
Like, you're poorly, but there's so much out there. There really is. I just didn't know, because it's almost kind of like undercover, like.
Yeah.
Because the programs aren't affiliated with any social media, like it's not advertised.
Yeah.
But you've literally just Google it, and you'll find it.
Yeah.
But I just think you've done really well, and I really like all of the things that you share on social media, like all of people's success stories and how far people have come. Like and that was really important in the beginning of my recovery, seeing those things as well. It actually really helped me.
Yeah, no, because it shows that it's possible, you know, and that's one of the things I love about like sharing like to people in the UK, like on social media, because like people here can be quite you know, behind the scenes with their addiction, and they're afraid to like speak out about it, and there's not like a lot of like recovery influencers here, right? In America, there's like 100 people that create the same content as me, but like here, I want to like target people in the UK and kind of inspire them and help people here. And no, I love it. I love sharing stories of recovery.
I definitely think you'll do that. I definitely think you will, because there is a gap in the market. You are right.
Yeah.
And also I think like this podcast, like sending the message and different people's stories, like hearing similarities will help other people.
Yeah.
And that is what people in recovery should be doing. We should be passing the message on to people that are suffering.
The only podcasts that I've done so far have been here in the UK, and it's been with people from like, you know, all different walks of life so far, you know. In the 12 steps, are you to the point where you are going to start sponsoring other?
No. Like, I think that would be.
You're doing it thoroughly, though.
I've only just started working the actual steps.
Yeah.
My sponsor, I got a sponsor quite quickly. She's a speaker at a lot of like event days and stuff like that. She's the most incredible woman ever. Like when I heard her speak, I knew that was going to be my sponsor. Yeah. Kind of bullied her.
Well, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody that can relate to you. I'll tell you, my sponsor, now I've had 3 different sponsors, and my sponsor now, I love him to death. And he's so brutal though. And I needed that, because like, he's like straight up, like, if I'm being a complete like douchebag, he's going to tell me like, dude, you're not, you know, you're in the wrong. Yeah. And you need to do work around it.
And that is what we all need from sponsors, because we are poorly people. And I don't know about you, but I'm definitely emotionally very immature after addiction, because we're kind of like frozen in time. So you don't have that time to adapt to social. So I'm socially a little bit awkward. I'm lucky that in my job, I get on with people, but I can be socially very awkward, which is probably where alcohol and drugs came into it. Yeah. But yeah, I just need a sponsor that's going to be like, not take my shit. Yeah. Or like, let me be charming.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, definitely. I think that's the good thing with like, as you progress, like as like time goes on with sobriety, you know, you start to develop those skills, because whenever I came in, I was like completely backwards with how I communicated with people, and was still not well with the type of people I was trying to surround myself with, and was definitely, I don't know if I was socially awkward, but I just wasn't.
Well, not equipped. Not equipped. You just haven't learned like at the same rate as everyone else. Yeah. Because you've just been. Yeah, just fuck.
Well, yeah, I started doing drugs at like 12 years old, and supposedly it slows down how your brain develops, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I only learned how to be in social situations around drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. So
anything after that, it was just like, how do you behave again? But even come the end of my addiction, like I was looking around a room at like how other people were behaving and like trying to mimic their actions, because I'd forgotten. Yeah. Forgotten what a good time looked like. Yeah. So yeah, just
with my job, so I do like the social media stuff and like content creation and all of that stuff, right? But I also do sober companionship and sober transport and stuff like that, and I coordinate like interventions and all of that. So like I've been in some situations where like people were like literally using in front of me, and I had to babysit them, just me and them, for like days and days, like weeks. That? I mean, it's a good reminder because they are not well, I mean, they're in a place where they're like at rock bottom, suffering. They don't want to use, but they're using. And it's like just a really good reminder of like who I don't want to be.
And didn't we all feel like that? Like I didn't want to use anymore.
Yeah.
I just didn't. And then when you do, you're like, oh yeah, I do. But you just didn't. Yeah.
No, at the end, it was like definitely a like compulsive thing. I wasn't doing it because it was enjoyable anymore.
Yeah. You're doing it because like your brain is like screaming at you that you need it. Like certainly my body started to get so poorly that the only time it felt all right was when I was using. So yeah, like what a world away I am now. But yeah, it's easy to forget those times. And I suppose if you're around other addicts that are suffering, yeah, it is a reminder.
Yeah. And also talking to like people's families as well. I mean, talking to moms all day long that are like their kid, they want to help them and they have the resources and ability to help them. But then, you talk to their kid and their kid's like, no, I don't got a problem. I don't want help, this and that. And the mom's like suffering or the dad's suffering. And it's like, I'd never want my family to feel like that ever again. And I definitely don't want my wife and my kids to feel like that. And it's like, no, it's a good reminder that it's just not the life for me.
Not just that, like you'd lose everything, and I can't stand the thought of losing what I have now.
Yeah,
it'd never be worth it. And like in recovery, obviously they say 1 is too many, 1,000's never enough, and isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
I'd never swap my life. Yeah, it's just out of your control when you're in that state. But how amazing is it that you're helping people like that now? And when you speak to the families, you actually are coming from a place of it's not patronizing.
Yeah.
You understand, you comprehend.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's probably a rare gift for families that are suffering that have someone suffering from addiction.
Yeah. And another thing is I've put a lot of time and effort into internationally, because I have people from everywhere reaching out to me. So I put a lot of time into gathering affordable or free international resources so that, say somebody can't afford to like, stay in the UK, they can go somewhere else like Thailand at the Cabin. It's and also the Cabin is like a 10 out of 10 quality treatment facility for significantly less than in the UK.
Yeah, of course.
So, I put a lot of effort into that because it also really was discouraging to talk to families and they're like, oh, well, we just can't do it or we can't afford it or, there's all these like financial challenges or, it just drove me crazy. So I started to put a lot of effort into finding new places. Yeah. That was like the hardest thing is like telling a mom like, oh, well, this is what's available and that's it. Like, sorry.
And them feeling like they're failing you because it's not within their abilities financially.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that you're giving that gift to people. And also like in terms of being spiritual within your recovery, like what a place to be in recovery and like start those steps of enlightenment, like to be in Thailand, like I just can't even imagine how much that would help people.
It's a very, very spiritual, especially Chiang Mai is like where all the Buddhists are. So, and there's like temples everywhere. Actually, on the Cabin property, there's like an actual like small temple and they have a stone that was like inscribed by like monks that's been there for a very long time.
That's literally amazing. I just think it's important work and how amazing that you've come full circle in your own recovery to be able to help other people.
Yeah.
I definitely want to help other people, but I just think that aspect, that what you can offer with your experience of addiction, I just think it's really inspiring.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I'm always learning as well. like, even though I'm at where I'm at, I don't feel like I'm there yet.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm still.
I think that's a really healthy mentality, because I think those bad thoughts that do manifest, I think they come when you start to think you're better.
Oh no, I'm not good. I'm not good. I have a daily reprieve from addiction.
Yeah, yeah.
And I still suffer slightly from mental health stuff sometimes. But now the thing is, I know that I can't use to, to treat my mental stuff, right? You know, I just had to work through it and live life on life's terms. And
it's hard at first, like dealing those first emotions when I first went into recovery. They fucking hurt the most.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's raw.
Oh, God. Just any emotion. Like, I cried at the clouds on, like, a few days into recovery. I was like, that's so beautiful. I've just been looking, because you look down. In addiction, you're always looking at the floor. Can't look at people. You're like, you just never, and I always say to the kids now, like, they say to me first, like, look up. There's so much going on. But, yeah, like, what a world away. It's just crazy, like, how far, and you're giving people that opportunity to get clean and, like, deal with those emotions somewhere safe as well. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely, if you go to the cabin, it's definitely safe, because you're, like, in the jungle, away from everything, you know?
I probably needed that at the beginning of my recovery.
Yeah. No, I was thinking that, I'm like, whenever I was there, I was like, I just wish that I could have came to treatment here, you know? Yeah, no.
What were the treatment facilities like that you went into?
Amazing. Yeah. Because our healthcare system's different in America. Yeah. So, and I got sober at 23.
Yeah.
So I was on my mom's, you can stay on your parents' health insurance until you turn 28. So, or 26. Yeah, no, 26. So, essentially my mom worked at a hospital for like 30 some years. So I had her private health insurance that gave me the ability to go to out-of-state private treatment facilities. No way. Now, the first like few that I went to, they were really nice luxury-wise, and they looked really nice. But the reality is they were lying to my parents and saying, oh, we provide trauma therapy and mental health treatment and all these like things that they didn't. But they actually provided amenities and all of that and looked nice. The food was good, all of those things. But while I was there, I wasn't getting like proper treatment.
Yeah, or making progress.
Yeah, and also they didn't hold me accountable to working the 12 steps. And they didn't hold me accountable to being part of the community. And those are the things you need, right?
Yeah, they are.
And so the last few, my parents realized, and they started to ask questions like, you know, what do you actually provide? And then they started to clarify with like the insurance company, hey, do you know this place? Do you know it's a good place? So they really started to do their research, and that made a big difference in my life, you know. And the last place that I ended up at, it was amazing. And they really held me accountable to working the 12 steps. I went to like 100 and some meetings in the first 90 days because I committed to 120 days of treatment, which in America, our health insurance covers that.
Yeah.
So completely covered, didn't have to have a job, nothing, like was in sober living, going to outpatient and going to meetings. And also I had a big issue with relationships in early recovery. And where I got sober at was actually the highest gay population in the United States. So there were a lot of gay men there, and I wasn't distracted. And my first sponsor was actually a gay guy, and he was like brutally honest with me in regards to relationships. And all my other sponsors are people that tried before, like you know, they weren't honest, and they didn't see it from that perspective. And he was just like savagely honest with me, and I needed it, you know? So no, it was a really good place, and it helped me get to
it's interesting what you say about relationships and your sponsor, because I remember saying to my sponsor that like I'd started seeing someone from my group quite quickly, like a much, much older guy. And she was just like, she was like, ring me later, we'll talk about it. So you have to tell your sponsor straight away. And she was like, you silly girl. And actually brutal. She was like, if you'd rang me and said like you really liked him, it'd be different. Like your sponsor will always, like, they can't tell you what to do, but they'll advise you. But
they'll suggest.
Yeah. And she was like, it's funny how easily you're like talked out of it, but you've got to be careful. You don't swap one addiction for the other. And sex addiction is really easy to swap.
Yeah.
You do have to be careful.
No, you do. And just the codependency as well.
Yeah, and your recovery will be dependent in someone else's hands. I mean, I think it's important. It's important for me to be with someone that's sober, just because I live a healthy lifestyle, and I'd like to live that healthy lifestyle with someone else. But in terms of in your recovery group, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't shit on your own doorstep.
Yeah.
Like I did.
That same sponsor told me that's like looking for a Lamborghini in a junkyard.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And not just that, like you're in your bubble at first as well, and you're like, this is amazing, and actually you don't really realise that other people are poorly. That's why they're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all fucked. But yeah, just don't do it. Don't shag someone in your recovery, especially in that beginning.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to get distracted as well.
Yeah.
The most important thing, if you're going to, because I don't personally believe like 12 steps is like the end all be all for everybody. Like,
no, it's
whatever
not.
they figure, you're on your own path. But if you're going to do a 12-step program, then working the 12 steps is the most important part. So, if you're not going to be able to focus on that, then, definitely don't get distracted.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it's important to be around, like, associate yourself with people in recovery. But
the fellowship is like one of the most important parts of it,
Yeah.
Getting connected with other people that.
Yeah, and they're like straight away people will give you their number. If anyone that is going to go like step into recovery or try it at these groups, like you will have the biggest network, and people will catch you when you're struggling. Like they will help you.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, you got to network all around the world once you get into
and that is the thing. There's all these online meets. There's 24/7 online meets around the whole world, which is fascinating. Because I've been to like Unity Days, and there's been people from America. Like we've had speakers from America.
Yeah.
And like there was one guy from Brooklyn, and like he was just fascinating. And I never would have spoken to these people, but there was just a meet in Croatia, one in Budapest. Like they are all over the world. And we just had there was like one in London, a big one in London, and you're just hearing all of these inspiring people, and it's definitely well worth doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you have like a message for anybody else, let's say, do you have a message for women that are trying to get into recovery?
I'd say like the 12-step program is the thing that's helped me the most. And what I like about working 12-step programs is if you're on your own with children, your children are welcome.
Yeah.
So please don't think being a single parent would stop you, because it certainly hasn't stopped me. And my children got in the way of my using. I don't want them to feel like they're in the way of my recovery. I want them to feel like the biggest part of my recovery, the reason for. So get into those rooms, get into those meetings. And like I said, like for men and women, it's the desire to be clean, to use those groups, not being clean.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just for anyone that's suffering. But yeah, especially women, like if I can do it. And my behaviour was toxic before, and I became a liar. I didn't like who I was. And if you feel the same, then you can change. I've really liked myself again now. Like you have to love yourself, and I love myself again now. I'm a good person, and I got that back, and people can get that back too.
Amazing. No, love that. Especially the part about like being able to take your kids to
kids and dogs. Welcome to groups.
No, exactly, because a lot of people use that excuse whenever they message me. They'll be like, "Oh, well, I have kids and I can't do it," and I'm like,
stop making excuses, because we've made enough, and we've also lied to ourselves for long enough. I'm the best liar to myself if I want to be.
Yeah. Your own best thinking got you there.
Yeah, and like once I work those 12 steps, I'll be starting those 12 steps again, because I'll forget it quickly. So just get yourself into those rooms 100%.
Amazing. No, that's solid advice. My name is Hunter, and this was the second episode of the Cabin Addiction Recovery Podcast, and I was speaking with Gemma Barnes. Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you for asking me. It's been, it's really important to like keep talking to other people that have struggled with addiction, so thank you.
No, of course, it's been good. Thank you.